Let's spin that thing. Ooh, Texas A&M. We're going to Texas A&M. All right. All right, Aggies. All right, College Station. All right. Let's let's talk about the Aggies, so to say, right? Because there's some things that a lot of people are gonna want to know, and obviously coming off that heartbreaking end of the season last year, and not just the final game in multiple games, right? So let's get us right real quick. All right. So if you're just now joining the wheel spin, it landed on Texas A&M, right? Let's talk about the Aggies. Storylines heading into the Texas A&M season, right? And what does it look like? Marcel Reed. He's got to be he's got to be the main focal point in regards to storylines heading into this season, right? You don't end well versus Texas, right? And then you lose an opportunity to play in the SEC championship, right? And then as a team, you guys just don't play well versus Miami in the playoffs. And obviously, Miami, they would go on to play in the national championship, right? So Marcel Reed, in my opinion, going into his third year, right? Going into his third year, the consistency of Marcel Reed is going to determine the success of Texas A&M, right? It's as simple as that, right? Marcel Reed has to take the next step, right? Because there are questions. Obviously, new offensive coordinator. Klein went to his alma mater at Kansas State, right? So what does that look like now, right? Holman Wiggins is the new offensive coordinator, followed by Joey Lynch, who's the quarterback coach for Marcel Reed. Okay, and this is going to be a young Texas A&M team. This is going to be a team, I don't want to say rebuilding, but there's going to be a lot of new faces we're going to have to get used to seeing, right? And, we'll talk about the schedule and outlook along the way as well, too. On the defensive side, Cassius Howe, obviously mid-round pick going to the Cincinnati Bengals. What does your pass rush look like? What do you look like on the edges, right? And if there's one thing that Texas A&M fans could be proud of is that they could trust Elko. Elko is going to put that defense, and Jay Bateman's going to put that defense in a position where they're going to find a way to get to the quarterback and cause disruption, right? So the pass rush is kind of going to be the question mark, right, of that defensive line and who comes into the play, right? And we already talked about that loss to Texas kind of really set the tone for what the rest of the season was going to look like. How do you flip that? How do you flip that if you're Texas and them going into this 2026 season where you're trying to make the playoffs, right? Granted, this is Elko's third year. He already got a contract extension. He was the right guy for the job, right? Now, what's the next step going to look like for the Aggies? All right. Some key returns. We already talked about Marcel Reed. Mario Craver, his star receiver, coming back, right? Naboo at center and Biscontis at guard are some of the key returners up front, right? There's some other question marks around that offensive line, though. It's as simple as that. Offensive line is going to be a question mark, right? I'm not sure if that's what you want from Marcel Reed going into a season where fans want to see more, but we'll see. On the defensive side, led by Des Ricks, former 5-star cornerback, he's going to lead that secondary, right, and start for them as well too. And then defensive line, you got DJ Hicks and TJ Serenzi playing on the interior D line, right? Those are some of the guys that are returning. Who's coming in? One of their top transfer guys was Brandon Davis Swan, the interior defensive lineman, came from Colorado. He's going to give them depth, right? And we already talked about DJ Hicks. We already talked about TJ Searcy, right? 3-man front, you got your starters right there, most likely, right? They got some freshmen they may count on, right? Aaron Gregory, 4-star receiver from Georgia, didn't go to Georgia. Went to Texas A&M. We got KJ Edwards, who may get playing time at the running back position. And then I'm from Jersey. So, I keep up with my Jersey guys. Jermaine Kinsler, D lineman from North Jersey, also committed to Texas A&M. Might be a guy that put on the outside, but also is also going to depend on his development. Obviously, getting used to the SEC is a little bit different, but we'll see how all that pans out. So those are some of the key returners, right? Those are some of the guys to keep an eye out for, right? Let's dive into their schedule. All right. So Texas A&M, right? What does the schedule look like for them? Missouri State, Arizona State, Kentucky, the start, and then LSU, the big rivalry, right? The big rivalry. That game is going to be bananas, right? Because both those teams, I mean, especially for LSU, you're coming off of Ole Miss and then back home to play your rival in A&M. How tired are they going to be physically and emotionally, right? And then A&M, I think you could probably get off to a good start. Right, and then after LSU, Arkansas, Missouri, the Citadel, and then you get Bama, right? That's not going to be an easy one going into Bama at that. Bye week before you get South Carolina. We don't know what South Carolina is going to look like. South Carolina can also be a sleeping giant. They could be some disruptors. Just depends on what that offense looks like. And then you got Tennessee, Oklahoma, and you got TU. So by no means, once you get into SEC play, does this schedule lighten up, right? So Texas A&M, for a young team, an experienced team, a team that has question marks on into this year, especially how last year ended. Aggie fans, talk to me. How are we feeling? How do we feel about the schedule? How do we feel about the team, the roster? How much do we trust Elko? I like Elko a lot. How much do we trust Elko in regards to maybe making this team a playoff team? I don't think this team is a SEC championship type of team on paper, but no one thought Ole Miss would be one game away from the Natty. No one thought Indiana would make it. So in the day and age, this is one thing I like about the transfer portal in this day and age is that it's given us so much curiosity. So that's not the word I'm looking for. So much balance, right? So much parity in the sport. So that's one thing. If the transfer portal did good, that's one thing I would say that they at least did good. All right. Question marks heading in the camp, right? So we still got media day heading into camp. Young defense. How well do they adapt? How well do they get on their feet? How fast can they get the ball rolling? Rebuilding that O-line. Listen, you got 2 returning starters that are going to be up front, right? But what do the edges look like? Because you got to protect on the outside. Listen, you got South Carolina on the schedule. Have you watched Dylan Stewart highlights? Have you watched Dylan Stewart coming off the edge? You got Texas as well, too. Have you watched Colin Hill coming off the edge? I mean, they got 2 of the best pass rushers on their schedule late in the season at that. So what does the O-line look like? And if it's a young O-line, how fatigued are they by the time they get to that point of the season? And the last, I said, this season is riding on the consistency of number 10. It's riding on the consistency of your fearless leader, your quarterback, Marcel Reed, right, who was potentially in Heisman talks towards the end of the season last year. The season is going to rely on the development and how far Marcel Reed has come along.